Hi folks, welcome back to my video series. My name is Lai. In today's sessions, we are going to look at NAS Backup. First and foremost, we are going to focus on architectures of how to back up your NAS. Then we are moving forward to look into the demos on how to configure backup for your NAS. And last but not least, we will end the session by looking into recovery as well. Without further ado, now let's have a quick look on the architectures, right? Now the next thing is when we want to back up your NAS by using Veeam software, first and foremost, you need to understand about your workload that you can protect. In terms of NAS, we can support either your Windows server or Linux file server. Okay, make sure it's a 64-bit OS. Then the next thing is we do support protocol of NFS plus SMB as well. With the latest version of V11, currently it do support NAS filer. For example, if you are using a NetApp storages, Lenovo DM series, and also Dell Isilon, you're able to use this Veeam backup to back up the NAS as well. First and foremost, when you want to do backup, we will have what we call cache repositories. So cache repositories is the place whereby we keep track of all the changes of your change file tracking. So Veeam leveraging on the change file tracking to back up those files which is do have some changes. All right. And then the one who do the works to take the backup data from the NAS and transfer to the backup repositories, that will be your file proxy. The file proxy you need to use as a Windows-based machine. All right. It can be physical or even virtual machine as well. Last but not least, the target whereby you can put your backup data. First and foremost, you will have the first backup repositories. Okay, it can be a standalone repositories, or you can use the digital offline as well. Then, for those files whereby you got active file and also deletion file, you want to keep your versioning for long-term archiving, then you can put it into archive repositories. Okay, for archive repositories, we do support object storage if you plan to use a hyperscaler cloud. Then the last one will be if you plan to set up another copy, all right, you can also transfer to the second backup repositories. Okay, so these particular repositories will be put it at the other side. The first repositories, you can have a different retention policy. For example, you can define either day or month, all right? And then the second backup repositories, you can even define either day or month as well. Okay, and it's not necessary that you can put it into the same retentions. All right, so let's switch over to the demos and we will look into how to configure backup for your NAS. Right? So what we have here is we do have a NAS and inside consists of multiple of files. All right, and inside here you can see there's a PowerPoint files, there's a media file as well, right? So what we're going to do right now is we are going to copy additional folders and put it into this particular NAS, right? Right. So the next thing is let's go back to the Veeam backup server. Right. So from here, the first thing is when you want to do backup, you need to go to the inventories, right? So from here, you can select your SMB share, right? So let me edit this particular share, right? So from here, you define the path of your SMB, all right? Then you provide the credentials to access to that NAS. After that, when you click on advanced, you can decide, do you want to back up directly from the file share, or do you want to integrate with Microsoft VSS, or even use storage snapshots as well. Okay, so my NAS is a typical NAS, so I'm going to back up directly from the file share. Then when you click next, from here, you need to define your backup proxy. Okay, so which proxy that you plan to use to back up the NAS, right? Next is your cache repositories. So this is the place whereby you put all the it's a temporary storage whereby you use it to store all the CRC changes, all right, especially when we are using the change file tracking. In terms of backup I/O control, from here you can configure to backup more faster, or you want to backup less faster, right? So if your storage whereby you use it for NAS is a very high performance storage, you can configure it to do fast backup, right? So it will use more threads and it will do more faster backup as well. If your NAS is a low performance NAS, then we do recommend that you set it as low impact, right? If you're not sure, you can set it in the middle, right? So one thing that you need to take note from here, if you're planning to set it to highest, uh, please do a monitoring on your NAS, especially when you do backup. Uh, you need to monitor the performance of your NAS, right? And also the throughput of the bandwidth that you use to do backup as well. So once you're done, you can click and apply, and then you can click finish, right? So this is how that you add your particular file share, right? Then the next thing is we are going to start to configure a policy to do backup, right? So from here, you can just go to click on backup jobs and you select your file share. To save time, I already configured it. So what we're going to do is we are going to edit this job. Sorry. Let's go to the top here, backup. And let's move into this particular policy, right? Define the name, all right? And if you want it to be a high priority jobs, right? So you can check on this as well, right? We're going to leave it unchecked. Then you click on next. So this is the place whereby you define your file share, right? Remember just now in the previous steps, we already added the file share. So from here, you're able to select all the file shares which is available that you want to do backup, right? Currently, my share is located in 192.168.0.1. And of course, when you expand it, you can see there's a lot of share folders as well, right? But at this moment, I just want to back up this. Cancel. If you plan to set exclusion as well, you can click on this advanced. So you notice here, I'm exclude those media file, MP4, right? Right. If you go to here, you notice that I do have some MP4 inside this particular NAS, but the thing is we already configured exclusion. So therefore, our Veeam backup will not backup this particular media file. Right. Let's click next. The next page will be you define your repositories where you want to put your backup data. So I put it into a scale up backup repositories. And then for the first retentions that I'm going to define is I'm going to put it at 7 days. So from here, this is the first repo. You can decide you want to put days or month. Next, if you plan to have archive repositories, you can click on this as well. So from here, you can define how long you want to keep your previous version, especially on the active version, plus the deletion version as well. So from here, you can define months or year, right? So on archive repositories, you can define also other storages, or you can point it to object storage if you want to. You can also select what are the files that you want to do archiving, or you can also select to exclude uh, those extensions as well. So at this moment, for our demo purpose, we are not going to back up to archive repo, right? Then when you click on advanced, okay, so this is the place you can define what is the versionings that you want to keep, right? For example, you probably want to limit your active file versions to number of 10, deleted file versions to probably 3 as well, right? So we're just going to back up and keep all the file versioning. Then the next page will, the next step will be access control list handling. If you plan to back up those permissions you can also set based on file or folders, right? Next is your storage tab. So this is the place whereby you define your compression level. If you want to encrypt your backup data, you can also enable encryptions, right? So the rest, you can play around with all these features, right? So you can also configure notifications. You can also inject scripts before we do backup, and also pre and post script as well. In terms of maintenance, if you want to check your health checks of your files backup, you can also enable these features. So we are going to click cancel. Then going to click on next. So the second page will be talking about your secondary repositories, right? So from here, you can define different locations wherever you want to make a copy. And the best part about here is you can configure to have a different retentions. Okay, for example, when I transfer to replicate to DR, I probably want to put 14 days, okay, which is much more longer. And I can also configure encryption as well. When do you want to copy this particular NAS to the second repo? You can also define the times whereby you want to configure to do transferings. Right? Once you have done that, you can click on next. Okay, click on yes. Right. Next page will be your scheduling. Right. When you want to plan to start the backup. Right. So we are going to click on cancel. Right. Without wasting any more times, let's start to do manual backup. So once I execute that, right, remember the file that we copy into the NAS. So right now, based on the change file tracking, we will only detect those changes and we just back up those changes, all right, rather than it perform the full backup. Right, there you go. So there's one folder that we transfer in, and inside consists of 35 files, right? Okay, we are done. So backup is completed. Now let's scroll down. So when we click on the disk, from here you're able to see this is your number of restore point. So now we got 4. If you want to view more details, you can click on property. From here you can able to see this is your restore point. Right? Then the next thing is, remember just now we configure a second repo, so it will appear under the disk copy. So from here you're able to notice this is your second copy. Right? Now, so let's simulate disasters, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to connect back to the particular NAS. Block, right? So from here, you notice there's a lot of PowerPoint file. So what we are going to do is we are going to remove all these particular file. Okay, press delete. So it's only left the media file plus the game folders, right? So to simulate there's a disasters, right, or ransomware attacks, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to do a recoveries. So you can just right click from here, and from here, let's say we just want to roll back to the point in time of our last backup. So from here, you can select your point, right? So from you can select the slider bar. When do you want to restore your point, right? So remember just now we added a game folders plus all this particular file as well, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to roll back and click on finish. So while waiting for this, let's look into the folders, right? Right. So not just here. So you notice I've already do a recovery, and all those PowerPoint file has been restored. Okay, and it's done. So this is the output. Right. So let's move on. Okay. The next thing will be let's try to recover a file. Right. So what we're going to do is let's delete again the PowerPoint. Okay, just going to remove so there's no more PowerPoint. We are going to restore file and folders. So what we are doing right now is we are going to open Explorers, and the next thing is we are going to select all the PowerPoint and we are going to restore. So from here, so this is all the PowerPoint, right? And if you do notice from here, there's no media file because we configure exclusions, right? So it doesn't back up those media files. So select your files and then you can right click, restore to original locations. So from here, you're able to see that when we are doing a recovery, it will use a file backup proxy. As it's done, let's view the folders. There you go. So all the file are being restored. Close the explorers. Okay, the next thing it will be this is the new capability on the V11. So in case you lost your whole entire NAS, right? And if you try to recover the whole entire NAS, which consists of millions of objects, that will probably take you a few hours, right? But right now, there's one important files that required by your management, and they want it as fast as possible, right? So therefore, without wasting any more times, you can now execute what we call instant file share recovery, right? So from here, select your restore point that you want to recover. So you can take it from the first repo, or you can take it from the second repo, right? So we're going to leave it as the latest one. Then we click on next. We are going to select the mount point, which server that we want to present as a share, right? So right now I'm pointing to the Veeam backup servers, right? Then I'm going to define the owners, right? So the owners of this particular NAS, right? So right now I'm pointing to administrator is the owner. And then in terms of permissions, okay, if the file that you plan to restore is confidential, you probably want to limit to certain people who can access to it, right? So from here, you can define the groups that those users will be able to access. But for demo purpose, we are going to allow for everyone. Okay? And we're going to click next, then we click finish. Right? So our original NAS is using 192.168.0.1. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to execute uh, instant NAS recovery. So it's going to mount as a different share, right? And what we're going to do is, let's point to the share first, 141, and it will be blocks, right? So it's already been published. So when I click on here, there you go, right? So this is your temporary locations whereby you can take the files, right? And then you can modify from another locations. The instant NAS recovery, it only works for SMB protocol, and the data is only read only, right? So if you plan to do modifications, it's advisable to copy out this file and modify into another location, right? So what we're going to do is once the user already copy out, so we go to the top here and we are going to unshare, stop publishing. Okay, stop publishing. And if I go back to the particular share here, right, it's unmounting, right? So the share has been unpublished. And if I go to here and I type the path again, you definitely will not able to see your NAS backup already, right? All right, guys. So this is a quick introductions about NAS backup by using Veeam. So we have talked about the architectures. We also looked into how to configure a NAS backup policy, and we also looked into some of the capabilities to do recovery as well. All right. So that's all for today. Thank you very much, and see you next time.